Hi and welcome. Poland is a map that I see mentioned most often in the comments, and today I'll be sharing the strategies I use on this map. We start playing almost immediately after leaving our spawn. We turn the turret and look to the right. Your reference point will be the marker marking point B. Our goal is to try and intercept the enemy in sector D2, where they'll either be heading to point B or moving to the lower part of sector D2 and D3, where the enemy often hides behind the rocks. You must remember that the enemy can be either above or below. Your priority is the enemies above, because in most cases the ones below are just mindlessly trying to capture point B, and our teammates will deal with them. Now we have two ways to play, a safer one, which should also be used by slow tanks, and a riskier, more aggressive one. Let's first cover the safer option and then move on to the aggressive one. We need to get to this building and gather information about what's happening on the left. Sometimes our enemies take positions near these houses or push even further to the flank. If you see someone there, they are your priority target, and you should focus on outplaying them first. In the more aggressive option, we don't stop near these houses and move forward immediately. Don't forget to keep an eye on your teammates. Ideally, you should push forward when someone is on the G or H lines. Our goal is to control the left side and get into a position from which we can deal damage to the enemies trying to capture point C. Driving through sector F4 is the most difficult, and this is usually where the first encounters with the enemy happen. This area is the most random, and the enemy can be either on the left or right in the forest. Now we take this position. If there are enemies nearby on the right, you know what to do with them. From this position, our main goal is not to let enemies get to the left. Overall, our mission is complete, and this is where the match ends for us. I wasn't kidding just now. This map is so absurd that from a position in the middle of the map, we can spawn camp. Whether it's spawn camping or an issue with the absolutely awful map design, that's a question you'll have to answer yourself. The only thing I want to add is that the effectiveness of this position is extremely random and depends entirely on the kind of players you're up against. If you face players who still haven't realized that spawning in Sector E1 is a bad idea, you'll get a lot of kills. However, if you end up against players who understand the absurdity of this map, you might not get anyone at all. In any case, closing down an entire spawn with one tank from the middle of the map is a good contribution to your team's victory. But keep in mind that sometimes it's incredibly boring to play here, and we don't really have many options to move around and have fun because there's a huge lake in the middle, as massive as the skill of the guy who made this wonderful map. The only advantage I've found for myself on this map is that it's a good place to practice shooting. If this map comes up more than twice during my gaming session, I start playing on this hill, farming points for a plane or helicopter, and try to forget this map like a bad dream. Playing from the opposite side is much more interesting. I hope you understand that spawning at the lower spawn point makes no sense for us at all. A couple of guys in Sector D5 and one in Sector F4 are enough to completely shut down the spawn point in Sector E1. That's why we are forced to play only from the upper spawn. Here we have two options, pushing into the city or going for a flanking maneuver. Let's start with the flank attack. We take position behind this hill and engage enemies who are simply driving across the open field. Sometimes there are quite a few of them and we can hold this position for a long time. There are no special tips, timing tricks, or advanced maneuvers here, just don't forget to check the left side of the map. There are often players who try to sneak along the A line to reach our position and start spawn camping. Intercepting these guys is your job. You shouldn't stay in this position for too long. Within a couple of minutes, most enemies who plan to flank are either in their next match or already flying a plane. If I don't see any enemies for 30 seconds, I usually move closer to Sector A1. Now all that's left is to push along the A line towards Sector B5. Of course, as you move along this route, you should keep an eye on the outer part of the city, especially if your team is losing. While making my way to the position, I want to take a moment to thank you for watching and subscribing. I also want to ask for your feedback. Should I make guides for bad maps where there aren't really any interesting strategies and the video ends up being just a collection of small tips? Or should I just skip them and focus on maps that are actually fun to play? I had this map banned for almost 6 months because, personally, I find it really boring. Let me know your thoughts so we can decide what to do with maps like this. This is our final position where we'll spend the rest of the match, or at least until enemy aircraft take us out. From here, we have a great view of the enemy spawn, but more importantly, we gain control over Sector E5, where enemy tanks are often found. Also, don't forget that if you move slightly to the left, you'll get a partial view of Capture Point C. Urban combat is a test of your ability to read the map, hear enemies, and pinpoint their location based on sound. It also challenges your understanding of when to push out and take a shot versus when to hold your position. Personally, I only play around Point A because the enemy team can easily fire at Point B from Sector E5. As soon as we leave our spawn, we need to check the road that runs through the entire city. This spot almost always has an enemy, and you can take a pre-fire shot here, hoping for a lucky hit. Our goal is to take this position. It offers maximum cover and doesn't require us to constantly watch all 360 degrees like we would in the middle of the city. This position is always the site of a major engagement between both teams, so if you want to improve your close-quarters combat skills, you have to play here. If we manage to win the battle for Point A, we need to push forward to pin the enemy team closer to their spawn. There are 2 possible routes for our advance. The first one, which you see now, is the path I use when our team has total dominance in the city, so very rarely. First, always keep an eye on this street. Even if there are teammates ahead, you might still find an enemy there. Now we can move a bit further, and right after capturing Point A, we need to check to the right again. That's the main square, and players love to hide there. Now we can move towards the square and turn left. This is the very street I mentioned earlier. If the enemy controls it, they can fire at our teammates almost at their spawn. In my case, a teammate was already here, but before driving onto this street, always check in third-person view to make sure no one is waiting right there. Behind this building is the hill I mentioned earlier in the video. First, we check it, then look to the left. This is the enemy spawn exit. The church splits your screen in half, making it easy to engage opponents as they push out from the left spawn. We also have a decent view of Sector E5, so don't forget to check it from time to time. Even though we've pushed out from the middle of the city, for some reason, enemies rarely look toward this church. Guys, sorry, but during the editing I realized I don't have footage from a real battle, so I'll have to show the second route on an empty map without opponents. Our goal is to get to this building. From here, we immediately check the hill where snipers might be, and we begin to control the exits from the spawn, both left and right. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and take care.